Pumpkin pie might be the only recipe you think of when using this delicious vegetable, but pumpkin is key to so many sweet and savory recipes. Pumpkins come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, from just a few ounces to prize-winning 1,000-pounders. You'll find most pumpkins seasonally at grocery stores, at farmers markets, and down on the farm. There's a perfect pumpkin for almost any recipe. The key is finding the perfect pumpkin for what you want to make. Today we are roasting pumpkins in the kitchen, and I am perfectly giddy to share this beauty of an entree salad that is sure to be the surprise star of your next dinner party. Now, there are all kinds of edible pumpkins out there. Some of them are in enormous shapes, or little bitty ones in colors and stripes and so forth. But if you want a beginner pumpkin, go with a pie pumpkin. It may look like a jack-o'-lantern, but you don't want to be eating your jack-o'-lantern. These will be labeled as pie pumpkins in the produce aisle. And you know what? They're no more difficult to handle than a cantaloupe. They're easy. So all I did was cut one of the small pumpkins into wedges and peeled it with a vegetable peeler. And now I'm going to put a very simple light spice rub on them and pop them in the oven. What goes in the rub is a little bit of sugar. We have a little bit of pumpkin pie spice, or you can use cinnamon. Then a little bit of wonderful smokiness from smoked paprika. And with most vegetable recipes, we've got some salt and some freshly ground black pepper. Just mix that up with your fingers. And then we want to lightly moisten our pumpkin wedges with a little bit of oil. Then I'm going to work in with about a slice at a time. I'm going to very lightly coat each of my pieces in some of my spice mixture and put them on a baking sheet that has been lined with aluminum foil or parchment paper, just to make it easy to clean up later. And that's it. These go in a 375-degree oven just until they're tender, depending on the size of the pieces. Now, why 375? I have found that is the perfect roasting temperature for pieces of pumpkin. It's tempting to jack up the heat and cook them a little bit faster, but you want a lower temperature so that the pumpkin can get done and tender and delicious all the way through before the spices begin to scorch. So the dressing for this wonderful salad could not be easier. I love to make dressings in a jar because you can shake them up, and should you have any leftovers, you can stash them in the fridge. The first thing I'm going to put in here is some honey. You want a nice floral, delicious honey, and a couple of tablespoons is probably what you want, but depending on your personal palate, you can add a little more if you wish. Then I'm going to put in some delicious vinegar. This is apple cider vinegar, but there are also honey vinegars in some grocery stores. If you see some honey vinegar, stick it in your pantry. It is delicious on all sorts of things. I have some fresh lemon juice. And the ever important lemon zest, which is where most of the flavor of a lemon is. Now we're going to add some oil, of course, and what this deep, dark, delicious stuff is pumpkin seed oil, and it tastes remarkably like a good pumpkin, which is going to make it great for this salad. But if you don't have pumpkin seed oil, it is no big deal. Just use olive oil, it will still be delicious. When you use a nut oil like this, a little bit is good, but it's robustly flavored. You would never want this to be the only oil you used. So for the rest of my oil, I'm going to use olive oil. Then a good pinch of salt and pepper. Put the lid on the jar and give it a good shake. So now it's time to build the salad on the serving platter. And I'm gonna start with some freshly washed baby greens. I picked a salad mix that has a little bit of baby kale, something a little bit sturdier to hold up to these beautiful pumpkin wedges. And now I'm gonna add some thin slices of shaved fennel. You know, fennel can get a bad rap, but it really doesn't taste like licorice. It has this mild aromatic taste that goes wonderful with pumpkin and apples. It's just right for this kind of salad. And now a little bit of fresh apple, something crisp, maybe sweet tart. I like to leave the peel on this to give a little bit of color. And now our delicious roasted pumpkin wedges. I just took these out of the oven so they're still warm and slightly sizzly. And arrange those over the top of your salad. Now at this point, I'm gonna put a little bit of my vinaigrette just to moisten things before I add the final garnishes. You know, there's more than one way to add crunch to a salad. Sometimes a toasted seed is far more interesting and delicious than a crouton. These are pomegranate seeds. The real term for these are pomegranate arils. Not only do they add color, they add a sweet, tart deliciousness and another level of crunch. I like to put a little bit of cheese for a little savory finish to this salad. This is an aged Gouda cheese. It has almost a caramel taste to it, little bits of crunchy goodness because it's aged. And take your vegetable peeler and just pull a few long strands. Maybe one more for good measure. Now, we're almost done. When I was cutting up the fennel, they have these little fronds that look like dill. They make a great garnish, a little bit of bright green to put at the end of your salad. Now at this point, you can put on a little more vinaigrette, but what I like to do is add a final drizzle of this beautiful, delicious honey. Just a little back and forth. I cannot wait to taste this. I want to dig in while the pumpkin is still good and warm, making sure I get a little bit of everything on here. Some cheese, and of course, one of these wedges of this pumpkin. You know, I make this every fall, and every time I make it, I'm excited to have these flavors once again. That's really good. You get sweetness, you get a little spice, you get a little smoky, you get the pumpkin, which is turned all creamy and delicious. And you know, this cooked in 20 minutes, it's like making a potato, but far more interesting and far more delicious. This is an amazing salad. It is gorgeous enough to be the center of the table and filling enough to be your whole supper. It is a keeper.